Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak. And it's really not that cold. When I get home to Denver tonight, it's supposed to be about 10 degrees with 3 inches of snow, so this is downright balmy. I need like a beach chair, and I'm ready for a little drink with an umbrella. So really today, I'm going to share my experience of living with CF, sort of share experiences, share maybe for the parents here some insights as to how my family and my parents sort of supported me along the way and made me sort of understand my illness and how to live successfully with it. I am going to leave some time at the end for questions, and really I want to throw this out there. You can ask me anything. Nothing's too personal, nothing's off topic. You would be amazed at the questions I've been asked over the year. There's never been a question I won't answer, even if it's awkward, embarrassing, or uncomfortable. I'm happy to share my experience because I think that's how we can all, make it easier to, live with CF and do well with CF. Just to sort of, as a disclosure, I do work for Hill-Rom, the company that makes the vest. I am not going to talk about it, except that it's integrated into my day, it's part of my regimen, but I just wanted to throw that out there just in case. So I was diagnosed with CF when I was 2 months old. I had a very attentive, aware mom who apparently, I think, diagnosed me herself. She noticed that after I got sort of the bottles I was supposed to get, that she seemed to think that I was still hungry after I'd gotten the bottles that I was supposed to be getting, and I'm sure my diapers weren't really a treat. And so she actually went to the pediatrician, and she had read Dr. Spock's book, which is like a baby manual, I guess. I got a book for when I got a puppy, so I would assume it's sort of the same thing. And she went to him and said, I think she has pancreatic fibrosis, which back in 1970 was another name for cystic fibrosis. Not really necessarily understanding all the ramifications or the consequences or the sort of that diagnosis would bring into our lives. And so he actually asked her, do you have any cystic fibrosis in your family? And she said no, without any idea of understanding what CF was. So I was really fortunate that she sort of caught that. We're really fortunate that the pediatrician listened to this new mom with this baby and didn't just dismiss her. And I was really lucky. I live in Denver. I was really lucky that there was a CF center that was there, and I started getting care immediately. Kind of like now with the newborn screening, I was really lucky that my mom was my newborn screening. And then certainly in 1970, so I actually just turned 44 at the end of August. I think I'm the only woman in the world who would admit getting a year older, or who appreciates every gray hair I get. I just got my hair cut, and he's like, getting a lot of gray. I'm like, leave me alone, I earned them all. I'm not getting rid of them, I've worked too hard for them. But back in 1970, certainly that diagnosis of cystic fibrosis meant a whole different world than what it is today. I like to say sort of my life with CF has sort of been broken down to almost two components, sort of the first 20 to 22, 23 years, and then sort of the last 20 to 22 years. In terms of medications and technology and therapies and treatments, it's a whole different world. I like to say that if ever there was a time to have CF, now is the time to have it, which I know sounds really wrong, but it is really the case. I mean, I certainly grew up with very limited options in terms of treatments and medicines, and now, my day could be filled with treatments and therapies and medications versus sort of the 2 or 3 that I had when I was diagnosed. But I think, sort of living with my illness and obviously growing up with my illness and having this awareness of my illness has been certainly a challenge. But I never have looked at it as something that can fully limit what I can do or what I can try. Certainly I have to be aware of limitations and certain things I should or shouldn't do. But I think I've never really assumed that I couldn't do something just because I had CF. And I think my family sort of had that same philosophy of it's not really something that will limit you, but it's certainly something we can help accommodate or do things, and sort of that awareness and that honesty of living one that has always been incredibly important. You know, I often, my family has been amazing in terms of what they're willing to do or the differences they'll make. And, you know, CF certainly offers challenges in a day. There's certainly lots of things that we have to do or our families have to do to sort of help accommodate all the things that we have to do in a day, whether it's treatments, figuring out a schedule, getting up an hour earlier so that you can get to the bus on time and get your treatments done, or, you know, staying up a little bit later or not doing those things. But I think the thing that has been really nice, or a different way to look at it, certainly there's more moments of maybe sad times or bad times or scary times, but there's also those times, there's more opportunities to celebrate, which sounds odd. I mean, I certainly know that I know that I'm the only grandchild to call my grandparents and say, you know what, I learned to swallow my enzymes. And, you know, we celebrated that as much as when I phoned them to say, you know what, I can ride a two-wheel bike without my training wheels anymore. So it's just those little things, and it's just that perspective of, you know, as many challenges as it offers that opportunity to have celebrations of overcoming those obstacles and those changes. And I think that's certainly a way to approach it. Not discounting the fact that it is a challenge and it is a change and it's something you have to incorporate and something you have to do, but sort of appreciating that it's just something that's there and it's never going away. So you have to figure out ways to sort of accept it and deal with it and sort of have your day with it. You know, my family's always been quite amazing in their willingness to sort of understand my CF or make accommodations for my CF, but also allow me to live with a certain amount of grace is the best way for me to put it. So that, you know, the challenges that I may face, they make it much easier. They also sort of don't let me get away with much because of my CF. I certainly try at times. When I was about 10 years old, I was wrestling with my uncle, and he had me pinned to the ground. And so I figured the best way to let him get me up is if I coughed. So he had me pinned to the ground, and he's like, he totally didn't pay attention, just ignored me. So I thought, oh, well, I'll cough harder. So I coughed harder, and I'm like, Terry, you have to let me up. I have CF. And he was like, yeah, and you always will, and slammed me down into the ground. So I just kind of, well, I'm assuming that if I would have been in distress, he actually would have let me up. Not 100% convinced of that. But I think that sort of proved that, you know, my family certainly didn't let CF make me be sort of this fragile little thing, and that, you know, didn't allow me to be as, I don't really enjoy the word normal, but allowed me to be as normal as possible. You know, certainly my mom says that when I was diagnosed, she remembers looking over the crib, and when I was 2 months old or 3 months old, somewhere in there, and decided that, you know, even if I maybe perhaps had a limited time in the world or in her life, that she wanted to make sure that people would enjoy being around me, and so that I was not going to be allowed to be a brat just because I had CF, and that I would have to behave accordingly and conduct myself in a respectful manner and behave and those types of things. And certainly as I was growing up and would be hospitalized or at clinic or interacting with my team or, you know, my healthcare professionals, I always had to be very respectful, because my mom said, you know, if you don't behave and cooperate, you won't really have to worry about CF. I will just take you out. And I'm 44, and I still pretty much believe that. She can still give me a Kristen Rochelle, and I straighten right up. So I think that had made a huge difference. Her approach to just really having, making accommodations, but yet still holding me accountable to be a good person, a responsible person. And I think that approach also made me realize, and her approach to, and my family's approach to how I had to handle my CF and take care of myself were really important as well. I think she always had this awareness that, I have CF, she doesn't, but they're there to help me. And I think myself being the person with CF, as I've grown older especially, I do have this understanding and this awareness now that my CF affects everybody. My CF affects everybody in my family. It affects my friends. It affects my coworkers. It makes a difference in my relationships, but not in a bad way. It makes us sort of cut through quite a bit of stuff and make us have a true appreciation. And certainly there's always worry, and there's certainly always that potential for sadness, but we also have the ability to have this joy of having this time. And I think that's incredibly important to appreciate that, we have today. And I think that I've lived well with sort of that thought or that philosophy of, certainly there's the really hard parts. Certainly there's the very scary parts. But, that's just part of it. And I don't think you can ever appreciate the good times unless you have something to reflect and compare, which are the bad times. Sometimes that proportion gets a little out of whack and it doesn't seem quite right. But I think that ability to sort of embrace those hard times and pull together also creates a connection that many people don't have that opportunity to form. And I know that sounds very strange, but it is a unique opportunity to have an amazing connection with the people in your life. And I think part of that as well is sort of how I handle my CF can make it much better for others. Because if I'm okay, it's very reassuring to the people in my life. And certainly that has been a process. Some days are better than others. Some days I handle it beautifully. Other days I get all sorts of cranky about it. But I think as well as sort of just this being really well educated and working with my CF team to really understand CF, to really understand what medications I'm taking, what treatments I'm doing, what I need to do in a day, why I'm doing what they've asked me to do is really important. And then really be able to work and collaborate with them to go, this is how I'm feeling, what does that mean? And be able to sort of figure it out and find the right answers, find the right tools to make that day better with all those things. And so, that relationship I have with my CF team and my team as I was growing up as well has been really, really important to doing well. Like I said, I'm the only one that I know that has CF in my family or in my friends, but I certainly don't do it by myself. The phrase, it takes a village, it takes a whole bunch of people to keep me together and moving along, of whether it's my coworkers helping me with my luggage, whether it's, making it easier for me to get through my day so I can get to the good stuff. That collaboration and that partnership and that assistance is really, really important. And also I think just that awareness of knowing what I need to do in a day. All my treatments, all my therapy, it's kind of a daunting task. If I ever just made a list and looked at what I had to accomplish in a day to take care of myself, I'd probably just go back to bed. But I have to just look at it piece by piece. So I'm really good at sort of micro focus or macro focus. I was never good at math or economics. So just staying really focused on the task I have to do at the time. So it's like, oh, done with that, move on to the next thing. And so I also think I have this appreciation, this understanding that all those things I need to do isn't what I want to do necessarily, but it gets me to the good stuff of what I want to do. I know if I want to have a good day, like I knew I wanted to be here today stand up here and not be coughing, I needed to get up this morning at 4:45 to do my treatment. You know, so certainly sometimes I'm the first one up and the last to bed, and not because I'm having the most fun, but because I'm doing my treatments. But I know because I put that effort in, it allows me to have a good day. And I think, you know, oftentimes with CF, we have a lot of stuff that we're supposed to do. We have a lot of people telling us what we should do. And I think sometimes, someone's laughing. So, and I think oftentimes when we rebel or we're not adherent or we're not doing what we've been asked to do, I think that is just a sense of trying to gain some control. That if I don't do this, I'm making that choice and I'm in control and I'm not doing it. So I would encourage you to discuss whomever in your life has CF, to sort of say, okay, you want control? You want control over CF? Then take care of yourself. Do your treatments. There's nothing better than doing your treatment to fight CF, fight the mucus. Even if it's a plug at a time, you're winning. Now, certainly there's those days where I just call sort of, I need a day off, I need to escape from the world. Who doesn't have a day where they want to like lay in bed, order pizza, watch Jerry Springer or whatever? You know, you just need an escape. You know, and certainly I have sort of what I call my non-CF day. But I also know if I have my non-CF day, if I skip a treatment, that there's going to be consequences. That night, if I don't do my treatment before I go to bed, I know that night I'm not going to sleep well because I'll probably be coughing. I'll know the next day I'm not going to necessarily wake up and feel as well. So I have I've developed this sort of task or this thought process that instead of just sort of going, oh, I'm too tired, I don't want to do that, I make myself sort of talk to myself, which probably isn't good to admit to a group of people or have it videotaped. But it's sort of, I'll go, you should really do your treatment. Oh, I'm really tired, I think sleep would be better. Yeah, but you're not going to sleep well because you'll probably be coughing. Yeah, but I'm really good at sleeping through coughing, so it's not really a problem. Yeah, but tomorrow you're going to not feel well, so you're going to have to put more time. So this discussion, as nuts as it sounds, and actually tonight I might even have it once I get home to Denver, is really important because it's sort of that awareness and that understanding of why I do what I'm supposed to do and the consequences of not doing that. And I think the more you can educate the person in your life that has CF, so that then I'm making a decision. I don't always make the right one, but at least I've really put some thought into it versus just like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I think my mom was always very good at making me understand the choices I make have consequences. But she also allowed me the space to stumble a little bit, which I'm sure as a parent is terrifying to see your child making a dumb choice. But I think that's just part of being a child, and I'm 44 and I still make mistakes. And I'm sure she still is like, oh. But I think, you know, that tone and that sort of sense of CF is my responsibility, taking care of it is my responsibility, was set at a very young age. When I was 6 years old, we had finished eating, and back in the day, I used to have to take about 25 enzymes every time I ate, which is so different now for the most part. So I'd be full before I would even eat. So it was always sort of an ordeal and not my favorite thing. And I've never learned the skill of taking more than one pill at a time. I kind of choke, so it was exhausting. I'm always in admiration of the people that can have like a handful of pills and go like that. It's like, I'm like, oh, wow. How do you do that? I like end up going and like falling over. So I was 6 years old. My mom's like, did you take your pills yet? And I'm not really sure why I was so brave or trying to be so independent, but I said, yeah, I'm not gonna. And she was amazing in her response. I don't know where she got this wisdom. She said, you know what, that's fine. You'll be in the bathroom, not me. So if that's the choice you're making, good luck. Totally not what I expected. I thought we'd have a little skirmish, a little back and forth. I knew I'd probably take him because I didn't really want to be in the bathroom. But it astounded me that she was willing to let me make that choice. But she also really did point out the consequences of that choice, which I'm not really a fan of. But I think that ability for her to let me make those decisions was pretty amazing. And I think that really set, not that I understood it at the time when I was 6 years old, but I think that sort of way of looking at things made a huge difference in sort of how I've lived with my illness, that, you know, I know that if I don't do something, I'm the one that suffers the consequences. Not that it doesn't interrupt other things or the people around me as well, but that difference is important. I also have grown to understand how difficult, or I don't necessarily understand, I guess I have a better appreciation for how incredibly difficult it must be to be a parent of a child with CF. Because I know certainly I feel out of control, but I still can do something right away because it's my illness. As a parent, I can't imagine having sort of no ability to fix something. And I think that that has to be so incredibly difficult. And I think certainly, I'm still 44 and she still asks me what I do or don't do. But I think, you know, I have that better appreciation now of, you know, sort of, especially as a teenager, and we'd have those battles. I was really skinny. We'd have those battles over the dinner table, like, you need to keep eating, and no, but she was trying to do what she could under the circumstances. But that awareness that that's what my mom can do. You know, remind me to take my pills, ask me if I've done my treatments, have I done that? In the past, I'd get a little cranky and be like, seriously, just leave me alone, lady. But I think I now have that appreciation that that's what she can do. And I have to be sensitive to that, and I have to have that awareness of that and know that that's really important. The funnier thing is my boyfriend's the same way. He's really good at reminding me to take my enzymes, so much so that, like, we'll go out to eat, we'll, like, sit down, we'll order our food, and, like, literally maybe get our sodas or water. He'd be like, did you take your pills? I'm like, there's no food. He's like, you never take them when I ask you if you've taken them. He's like, how do you travel without me there to remind you to take them? and I'm like, oh, you're so sweet. Bless your heart. Some of you understand what I mean when I say that. So I just embarrassed myself. But I have to, I appreciate that he's trying, and that's what he can do. And so I definitely have to, I just love him all the more because he really does try. And, you know, he is an amazing support as well. You know, when I am doing my treatments or I'm not feeling well, he does, you know, like the mucus cheer of cough it up, spit it up, way up, you know. He wears a really cute outfit too. But even last night, he's on a business trip and I'm here, and he even texted me that last night. So that ability to understand what I need to do, that acceptance of what I need to do, and then the support to get me through what I need to do is incredibly important. And I think that that ability to have that support makes all the difference, because CF is hard. It's not, I mean, there's a lot of good things, but it's hard. There's a lot of demands, there's a lot of scary, there's a lot of stuff you have to do in a day to get through it. But I think it's all okay, because the definition of what you have to do in a day, or the definition of what is fulfilling, or the definition of what is normal is for each person. And so for me, doing several hours of treatment, coughing, taking enzymes, doing medications, doing treatments is my normal. And that's what I have. You know, certainly there's been times where, you know, it is frustrating and it is difficult, and I do have to make decisions putting my health first versus something I really want to do. And I don't necessarily always 100% make the right decision, but I think there is that process of having that appreciation that we do have to take care of ourselves and we do have to do those things. There also is certainly a process to work through and be willing to find some peace with the hard, scary parts of CF. Because I think if you don't acknowledge those hard parts, it can sort of paralyze you. It can take away from what you can do in a day because you're so worried. And I think, that fear, that worry of, I'm going to miss this, or I'm going to do that, or I just can't, you have to find that balance. And I think that's one of the things with CF throughout the years, is I used to say you just had to be, and I still agree, that you have to be really good at adapting, because CF is like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Every day is going to be different, and all the parts are going to look different every day. You don't have any more or less parts. They're just always going to look different. And I think that ability to sort of understand and adapt, or this is not a great day, but tomorrow will probably be good. You have to this is what it looks like today, but tomorrow it's going to look this way. But I think along with being able to adapt to the changes it brings, whether it's adding new treatments, adding new medications, maybe changing things up a little bit, is also you're constantly having to renew your acceptance of living with CF. You have to renew and sort of find peace with where you're at now. And I think that's certainly something that in the last several years I've learned to have to do. And I think that is incredibly important, to be able to be at peace with what CF is. And I think, certainly there's those days where you just are frustrated and it's just a terrible day. And, I certainly have growing up a couple times where it was sort of like, why me? This isn't fair. Why would this happen? And my mom had this amazingly, at least to me, it was very eloquent and very reassuring of how she sort of explained one of probably the most daunting questions a child could probably ask their parents of why me, why did this happen? And she said, you were created out of love, and anything created out of love can't be wrong. And I don't know why. Maybe that makes no sense to anybody else. But to me, it was one of the best things to allow me to kind of go, okay. And I mean, certainly there are those days where it's harder to be more accepting than not. But it's also sort of that thought of, if you're in a traffic jam and you're really mad that you're in a traffic jam and you pound on your steering wheel and you honk your horn, doesn't move your car. That's kind of like living with CF. I could sit here and be mad and thrash about. The fact that I have CF is never going to change. So you have to find a way to be okay with it. Not every day, not every minute, but overall, you have to be okay and work through it. And it takes a process. I mean, I'm 44, and I still have my days where I'm pounding on the steering wheel. But that's okay, because it is challenging and it is frustrating, but there's still so much good. And living with CF today is so different than when I was diagnosed. I said earlier, it's a good time to have CF, which seems like I should be struck by lightning to say something like that. But the medications, the changes, the opportunities, the challenges are getting less and less. I mean, who doesn't like a challenge of figuring out which medication can I take that'll help me versus there are no medications to help me? That's kind of a nice problem to have. I think, living with an illness like CF, you can never give up that thought of hope that things are going to ultimately be better or change or whatever. But I think you also have to live in the place of, this is really hard, this is kind of scary, it has really a dark sort of end point. But if you don't let that end point have the power, you can have an amazing life. And I have to say, I am incredibly lucky. Under the worst of circumstances of CF, I've had some of the best of circumstances. It's opened up opportunities for me to meet amazing people. I had to have CF to get my job. So I've worked what I could. It allowed me, I know this, and I probably shouldn't say this because it's being taped. And I've used it when I could to some advantage. I've used it to get out of jury duty, which I know is not responsible. But what's even worse is my mom used it to get out of jury duty, and I didn't even live with her anymore. I'm like, seriously? That's kind of magic. So, I mean, and I think you have to have a sense of humor. I think that's the only way to get through this. And, you know, just working through the hard parts, finding some level of peace, finding some level of acceptance, having appreciation for the challenges that you face, but also know as you overcome those challenges, you have amazing celebrations and opportunities. You know, and just that ability to have that appreciation and that connection with the people in your life is really important. And I think that's what I've learned. And that's, I continue to understand and grow and learn. And so, you know, I am really lucky. I have no idea what type of person I would be if I didn't have CF. I kind of think I'd be a mean girl. Because I have a tendency to go that way anyway. So I think I've allowed me to have a much better sense of empathy, a much better appreciation, and a better perspective on the world. And not that I would wish CF just so they could be a better person on anybody, but it has allowed me a certain opportunity to live in a certain way. And I've been really amazingly lucky that my family, my friends, my coworkers, everybody's sort of supported me and carries me through the parts that I can't get through by myself. And that's a lot of the time. And so I know it's hard. I know it can be incredibly daunting. But sort of embracing those really challenging times, trying to find some level of acceptance, and you can have an amazing life. So with that, I will wrap up, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. So thank you again for the invitation to speak. Thanks so much.